Hi folks, it's Andy and welcome to this week's Kendo Rant. Okay, so here we are for another week of fantastic questions. We're going to get to them in just a moment. But before we do, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, the YouTube magic, and write a comment down below. Words to the effect of what a great Kendo video. You must use the word Kendo to help grow the Kendo population. We've already had about 6,000 or more people probably start Kendo just from these actions. We could get that to more than 6,500, maybe even as far as 1 million. Probably start Kendo just by doing those things, appeasing the YouTube robots that live amongst us. They go around society hunting down people who are just about to start Kendo, like the Terminator, like RoboCop, like Johnny Five, and they go around finding them. When they find them, they make sure to show them a Kendo video in their YouTube feed. And that happens by us letting them know what videos to do by writing Kendo in the comments. So write a comment down there, what a great Kendo video, and you'll help grow the Kendo population. I'm sure that's how it works. I'm pretty sure. Most importantly, support the channel by shopping at KendoStar.com. KendoStar is the best Kendo equipment retailer in the history of the galaxy, universe, multiverse, everything. All right. I would say that, of course, because I own the place. But everybody agrees with me. Everybody. All right. We've got the highest rated rating on Trustpilot amongst all e-commerce stores, not just Kendo shops. Like, we're amongst the highest rated on there as a whole. Nowhere's got as high a rating on Trustpilot as we do in terms of Kendo shops. You're going to shop with us anyway. I know there's like little pretenders popping up left, right and centre, and there's some of the old school ones as well that's still knocking about, trying their best to stay above water. But you're going to shop with us anyway, all right? So don't waste your money. Yeah, we're a proper, legit organisation with a full team of staff that's there to make sure you're provided with the best quality equipment with the best service. All right, it's not just me doing it out of my bedroom. All right, you're going to get the real deal. All right, so don't get disappointed elsewhere. Don't waste your money. Come and shop at KendoStar.com. You're going to do it in the end and support the channel at the same time. Right, let's get to these questions. Fighting against Sensei. Now, this is one from a couple of weeks back. I kept missing it. So sorry about that, all right? I kept missing it. I don't know why. It kept flying under the radar. But here it is. Fighting against Sensei. Very good thoughts on that. I currently into a transition of enlightenment on this one too. After only more than 15 years of Kendo, I slowly realised what it's about, not to win or beat. As you said, beautiful. Realising this makes one feel quite stupid in thinking back. But never too late to change and improve, I guess. Your last video contained content that leads you to give us some thoughts of yourself before and while this transformation process in your own Kendo. I'd love to hear more on you. From you on that. I'm sure I'm not the only one. I feel this is one of the more important transformation points of one's own Kendo, and it's quite a hard one. I know this is not really a question for your rants, but maybe you can feed your faithful shop supporters a little more on this topic. I'm aware this might be a little hard to grasp for Q Kendo Gal, but maybe we can help some people not needing 10, 15, 20 years to comprehend this point. By the way, very interested. You also told a little from the other side of the perspective. Maybe this can be a good way to clarify things for beginners. Cheers. Okay, so this is in response to a video I did a couple of weeks back talking about like how is the best to get the most out of practicing with Sensei, right? And how a lot of us get it wrong, especially in the first sort of stages of Kendo. And I had this totally wrong. So you're asking me to talk about my experience with it, I guess. So I've talked about it a bit before, but to sort of go into it a bit more, all right? I had the sort of epiphany when I was about 4th Dan, about a year before I took my 5th Dan, when I realised that the sensei isn't just a sort of opponent, or like in video games terms, like a boss that I'm there that's there for me to defeat, so that I can level up. That's not how it works. All right. The Kendo Sensei is not there for me to just try and overcome them, or like I say, just beat them in a fight. It's not how it works. All right. And it's easy to fall in that trap. And I said I did it myself, right? I'd go against Hachidan Sensei, and they'd be good Hachidan Sensei, and I'd like do my best to try and score as many ippons on them without losing any ippons, and feel good about myself and feel that the sensei was impressed. And sensei enjoyed it too, I guess. They seem to sometimes, and I think part of it was by virtue of the fact that I was sort of non-Japanese and I was doing this in Japan. So they kind of found it a little bit novel, I guess, that I was sort of doing Kendo to a level that they hadn't quite expected, more than anything. But it wasn't until later on that I realised, this isn't really benefiting me. And it was when I was part of a dojo, and the sensei was older sensei. He was in his 70s. 7th Dan Sensei, not particularly famous around the world, well known in the city that I was living in. And he'd go to practice at the Butokuden in Kyoto, which is where I was living. And then he'd get in his car and he'd drive straight from there after doing an hour of motodachi there, and he'd come to the dojo and he'd stand as an hour of motodachi there as well. And I'd already be at the dojo on the practice night, and I've already, he'd come and join, and I'd run in queue and do my keiko with him. And for the first, I guess, couple of months, I just did my best to try and beat him or prove to him how good I was, essentially. I think what a lot of people get caught up on is they want to. I think that's the point. Is you have this feeling you want to prove to the sensei that you're good, or that you want them to think that you're good or compliment you. And a lot of people mask this, and I can see already. Well, no, I'm just trying to practice my different techniques or something like that. Sometimes comes up when you talk about using different techniques on sensei, like ski or something like that, or gyakudo and stuff like that. It's like, well, no, I should be able to practice all of them. It's like, that isn't what the sensei practices for. It's not there for your kihon geiko or your waza geiko. So that's really what the point is. But anyway, so this sensei I'd practice with every week, and I'd do my best to, as I say, just try my best to prove to him what a great kendoka I was and how strong I was. And I was like, what would I have been, 27, 28 at the time, something like that. So, more than 40 years younger than him. And it was one day, and then every day, of course, he'd be like, okay, let's do Ippon, and of course I'd win, and by doing some sort of feint and then hit kote or something like that or whatever, and I say of course I'd win because he would keep the keiko going until I won, right? I didn't necessarily realise that, but anyway, I'd win, and then afterwards he'd say, oh yeah, I was really good kote or something like that. I was good, yeah, really good, nice sort of thing. And I'd go away feeling really impressed with myself. And then it was one day that I went to the dojo, just normal practice, and he came to the keiko halfway through, as he normally did, because he'd been at the other keiko beforehand. And I did this keiko with him, and then and I was doing my normal thing, and then sort of partway through, he just hit this men on me, where I was going to hit men, and I sort of froze, and he hit this brilliant debana men on me. And it was like, wow, okay, that hasn't happened yet from this sensei. I was like, oh, okay. And it really affected me. I'm not sure why that specific one did. It's not the first time he'd ever hit me or something like that. But this particular time, I was like, he hit me at this point where I was unable to even process what had just happened. And this was back in the day when like I worked for a pretty, I won't comment on the company I worked for, but I worked for a company that, and I didn't have much money, let's say. And so I couldn't drive or anything like that. So I strapped my BOGO on the back of my bicycle, and I'd get on the bicycle, I'd be pedaling home. And all the way home, I was thinking like, what the hell just happened? Like, and I sort of was thinking to myself, like, okay, so at that time, you know, Sensei was, he was like in his 70s and early 70s. And it's like, what have I been doing? Right? This guy has been doing Kendo longer than my dad has been alive. Right? Not longer than I've been alive, longer than my dad has been alive. Right? And I was going in there and just trying to beat him, try to prove to him that I'm quicker and faster than he is. I'm like 28 or something, and he's, of course, everyone knows that. We don't need to find that out, right? But at that one point, I just couldn't do anything, and he just hit me, and all I could do is stare into space. And I kind of realized that I'd been doing it all wrong. All right, I've been doing it all wrong. All I've been doing was trying to compete with him and prove to him and satisfy my own ego, right? Oh, yes, I hit Sensei. I beat Sensei. I'm so strong. I beat that Nanadan Sensei. Aren't I good? Aren't I brilliant? Okay. And then basically, it wasn't right, you know? And I decided, okay, I'm only going to hit men. I'm only going to try and hit the Debana men on him now. All right. That's all I'm going to do. And for the next about 3 months, for the whole Keiko, every time I went from to Keiko, I just tried to do Debana men. And I couldn't hit a single one. He just hit me every time. Couldn't do it. And then finally, after about 3 months, I got one. And he probably gave it me, to be fair. But after the Keiko, he's like, yeah, that was good. And that wasn't why I was doing it, but like I sort of realized I'd been wasting my time all this time trying to just prove to myself that I'm faster than a 70-year-old guy when I'm 28. But when it comes to real Kendo, if I stand up to him face to face and challenge him, like honestly, then I can't overcome him. And it wasn't until I was able to really give everything away and accept my defeat and knew that I was going to be hit, that I was actually in the end able to really throw everything away, proper true systemi, and hit a strike. And I think that's where I started to understand. And it took me a long time after that. Of course, I still sort of fell back into points where I'd go to Sensei and I'd try to beat him up or whatever. But I guess I realized that I had to be clever, or not clever, but more mindful about how I practice with the Sensei. And then it was put to me another way in that, you know, the Sensei is not there for me to knock down or to beat. They're there for me to use. And essentially, like when I did my last grade in my 6th Dan exam, I was all sort of, you know, the day before the exam. Of course, I had this sort of idea in my head of what I thought I'd have to do for the grading, and then all of a sudden I had these sort of doubts. What if I've got it wrong, and I don't want to fail, and you know, all that sort of thing, as you do. And I just, luckily, that day of the grading, before the grading in the morning, there was a seminar and there was Hachidan Senseis there, and I decided, do you know what, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do what I think's right. And I just went straight to Hachidan Sensei's, and all I did was just try to hit men. Just step in, try to hit men. And I knew they would fail, but I just thought, I know this isn't going to, you know, I know I'm going to receive the Debana Waza or Orji Waza, but I'm just going to throw everything, my whole heart and soul into each of these strikes. And, you know, hopefully I can take that feeling into the grading, and I did, and it was successful. So, you know, it's It's hard though. It's hard to do it. And as I say, you know, I've been thinking a little bit about talking more about this on the channel. I've got videos of various senseis that I've practiced with this year, and maybe doing a bit of a sort of look over those. But I don't know. I'm not sure about it yet. As I say, I'm not sure I've got the courage to do it, but I'll think about it. And yeah, finally, I think I'd just say that now, obviously, seeing things from the opposite side, because in the country I live in, the UK, 6th Dan is a reasonably high grade. All right, so I'm often stood as the motodachi and practicing with, you know, newer kendoka. And yeah, of course, I see it a lot where these sort of younger ones come, you know, they try their best to sort of beat me. And sometimes I explain to them, and sometimes I just let it go. But you can see it sometimes, like, well, you know, you're not quite getting this. This isn't the best for you. And if we want to really try and, you know, because I'm not that old yet. Yeah, I'm not that old yet. So, you know, if we really want to try and compete with each other, we can do that, but you won't gain anything from it, right? So it's difficult because, and I know it's not, a lot of you are not going to want to hear it. A lot of you are probably going to hear me say this and be like, no, well, no, I'm not just trying to satisfy my ego. I'm just trying to do my best kendo. It's like, well, your best kendo isn't how many times you can hit Ippon in 3 minutes with a Hachidan Sensei, right? That isn't an indicator of your best kendo. You know, what we really want to know is, like, can you face them, face head on? You know what I mean? With and abandon your fear, knowing that you're likely to be unsuccessful, and still give everything 100% with full stemmy to one single strike. Can you do that or not? Knowing that you'll probably fail. Do you know what I'm saying? And you might, and it means that you might come away from that keiko having not hit sensei at all, not once. And I'll tell you how I know, right? And this, I'm going to move on in a sec, because I know I've been on about this a lot, but I'm quite passionate about this. But I tell you what, right? A couple of years ago, we had some Hachidan senseis come to the UK for a seminar, and you know, everybody gets to do keiko with them, and I did as well. I lined up for one of them. This is a very famous sensei, and this is one of the reasons I don't necessarily want to do the analysis video of my keiko with senseis either, because I don't like dropping names of famous senseis and stuff like that for clout, which people do a lot, but I don't like doing it. And I don't want it to come across as like, oh look, here's a video of me practicing with this sensei and that sensei. That means I'm, you know, practicing with a specific sensei doesn't give you any sort of status. So I'm a bit concerned about that, which is another reason I want it, and also because, you know, it's not easy putting videos of yourself doing kendo on the internet, right? Now, anyway, I did a keiko with this sensei, or he allowed me to do keiko with him, and I just tried to give everything and throw everything into my men strikes. I didn't try and hit his kote. I didn't try and hit his do, and I just tried to throw everything to him. And I didn't hit him once. He just hit me with the Debana waza or the Kaishi waza or whatever, and with relative ease, right? And I came away like, okay, well, I didn't hit a single one. Like, okay, but okay, that's fine, because that wasn't the goal. Wasn't to hit him. It was to give my best. But still, and I'd been a translator at the seminar, so I kind of wanted to impress the sensei. Of course I did, right? You do, right? But I'd say later that evening, the other sensei was talking to me at the dinner, and the sensei didn't say anything afterwards. Like, he didn't say anything, but the sensei said to me at the dinner afterwards, like, oh, sensei was really impressed with you, you know, like, sort of thing. I was like, oh, okay. And again, I didn't do it for that sake. I didn't do it for the sake of that. And the reason I'm even talking about that is because for me, that kind of validated that I was doing the right thing, you know, because I didn't get that praise directly from the sensei. I didn't need to. I didn't even need it from that sensei either. But it kind of put me on the, you know, not put me on the right track, but validated that, yeah, I'd carried out that keiko probably in the right way. So, you know, it wasn't about how many times I managed to hit him or what, you know. I went to the other sensei the next day, and he made me do like really long karigeko. Hell, nearly died. It was good. So yeah, that's it. All right. I hope that makes sense. It was a little bit of a ramble there, a little bit, you know, all over the place, but I hope it was useful. Good afternoon, Fish Sensei. It's morning here. Anyway, horrible morning as well. Weather's typical British weather. I hope you're doing well. While recently attending a tournament, I was discussing with the sensei how to properly cheer a competitor during a keiko. I think you mean a shiai, but anyway, keiko is practice. All right. So when it's like a tournament, it's during the shiai. Okay. Anyway, some of the other competitors were watching the shiai. I'm going to say shiai. And were cheering using the competitors' names, which I believe is not ideal. On the other hand, I believe the standard neutral cheer was Aito, which I had no idea what it meant, but assumed it was a Japanese word for encouragement. To my surprise, the sensei informed me that in reality, the cheer being used was not Aito, but Faito. Funny that I'd been shouting my awesome invented word Aito for many years. Could you please comment on the appropriateness of cheering a player's name? Is the cheer really Faito? If so, where did that come from, and how come we don't use as a Japanese term, or do we? And I'm not aware of it. And how do they cheer competitors in Japan? Many thanks, and have an awesome Kendo weekend. Okay, cool. So, right, cheering. You're not supposed to cheer at Kendo tournaments. All right, you're supposed to just clap. In reality, that's not quite how it works, is it? All right. And especially at bigger tournaments. Okay. And it depends. All right. I'll get to how it happens in Japan. And it depends on the caliber of the tournament as well. Right. You know, so in terms of, let's start there. Let's start with how it works in Japan, actually, because that helps with the others. You tend to find at like sort of tournaments like maybe local level and especially like up to high school, maybe university level tournaments, there's a lot of cheering, especially from other teammates or from the audience. I don't think it's normal to shout someone's name in Japanese, but I can see how it's not, you know, it's a little bit easier to do that in English. And I don't think it's any less appropriate than shouting anything else. So in terms of what they're actually shouting, Faito is a Japanese word, sort of. It isn't, all right? I don't. Okay. And it's the Japanese sort of pronunciation of the word fight, right? Fight. Yeah. Fight. Which in Japanese, sort of modern Japanese, certainly in sort of casual settings, they use that as a means of encouragement, not just in Kendo, but in everyday life. All right. You know, oh, I'm having a tough day at work today. Your colleague might say, oh, fight up. Yeah. Do your best. Come on, let's go. Yeah. It's that sort of thing. A Japanese equivalent could be gambare. Gambare. You have that. All right. Gambare. Yeah. Sometimes there's what's it? Gambatte is a sort of less assertive form of it, but you don't hear that in a kind of, you know, gambare is like a come on, let's go kind of thing. Whereas gambatte is a little bit softer, a little bit more low key, should we say? So you wouldn't necessarily shout that. as much. You tend to hear gambare. Okay, so and you tend to they tend to hear sort of alternations between the two or one or the other. Both are just regularly used. You know, it's a bit like I say, it's like you know, come on, let's go, yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah, it's there's not just one cheer, right? So that's where that is. Okay, and it is, yeah, it's fighto. And if you were to write it in sort of not English, but like Roman letters or Romaji, you would spell it as fighto, like that. Fighto. So yeah, that's used quite a lot. It is a bit weird, I've got to admit. It is a bit weird when you see like people in Kendo shout it a lot, especially if they're not like they're not Japanese speakers and they don't know what it means, and but they're shouting fight, you know. So when they're sort of going like fighto, fighto, and all like this sort of thing, and it's a little bit strange to hear. I think in Korea they use a similar word, which I think they use fighting. Fighting, I think it's the same. It's in the same context. So sometimes you hear them shout fighting sort of thing. It's the same idea, the same thing. All right. So yeah, that's that. And like I say, yeah, in a Japanese context, yeah, a kids shiai, like it's well loud. It's a bit of a problem, to be honest. And then at the sort of teenagers, university level, yeah, people are shouting and stuff like that, especially the audience. There's not a lot you can do about that either. But when the sort of caliber of the tournament goes up, like there are adults tournaments as well. Like if you watch the police championships, people are shouting, right? People are cheering, right? At the same time, if it's the All Japan Championships, you don't tend to get shouts. Yeah, you tend to get applause, and you might get yeah, but you tend not to get a kind of fight or anything like that. You just get like a kind of a sort of thing. And ideally, that's what you should have at tournaments at that level. But if you go to something like the European Championships or the World Championships, you'll hear a lot of shouting and cheering as well. They try to dissuade people from doing it, but at the end of the day, it's the crowd. What can you do about it? Do you know what I mean? It's, you know. So yeah, that's that. Next one. This is more of a comment than a question, but I did want to pick up on it. Having adults test for low Q ranks and essentially having them line up as equals with kids is silly and likely leads to membership churn in clubs. Hot take: federations do this artificially to keep people ranking up slowly, which is to the benefit of higher ranked people, 4th Dan plus, to retain positions of authority. Plus, it means more testing fees for federations. So, we talked a little bit last week about how in some countries, I think the person who messaged was from Germany, but it's not just Germany, there's other countries as well that do it, where you have to take every Q rank before you can start taking the Dan ranks, and it means you can take like 3 to 5 years to get to Shodan. And I mentioned how I felt it was a little bit... Well, I felt like it can hold people back. I don't think it's necessary, is my personal view on it, but that's, you know, just my opinion. So this is in response to that. I'll be honest with you, I think that's a very cynical take. I understand why you look at it that way, and it could be, I'm not saying it's not. But if I honestly believe that isn't the intention of the federations that are doing it. All right, I don't think that the federations are doing it for money. I don't think they're doing it for the sake of letting higher grade people feel like they're more important than they are. I honestly believe that those federations truly think that is best for people's Kendo development. Okay, I honestly do think that. I don't think there's any dishonesty there on behalf of the federations. So although I disagree on that point of view, I don't think they're doing it from a place of, as I say, dishonesty or anything like that. I do think that they feel that having a person test from 6th Q, 5th Q, 4th Q, 3rd Q, 2nd Q, 8th Q, Shodan and upwards, and spending years to do that results in spending longer time on the basics so that they have better Kendo by the time they become Dan grades. I honestly think they do believe that. All right. And that's the reason for it. My counter argument to it is that, like, if you take third dans from all across different countries, let's not talk about Japan, but all different countries, right? There's not a distinguishable overall level. All right. And I'm talking, you know, I've been to a lot of places. I've seen places a lot around the world. I get people sending me videos for feedback from all different places. When someone, you know, of course there's better third dans and not as good third dans or second dans or whatever, but the overall level is not consistently higher in one country over another. So that's my sort of take on that. So yeah, which I think this question pertains to it a bit as well. So let's have a look. Hello, Fish Sensei. This Kendo rant is really timely. I'm a Kendo beginner. Started 5 months ago in the dojo. Oh no, it's not. I know there is another one about that, but we'll get to it in a minute. The dojo where I am training, there has a beginner, an exam for beginners before they can don the borga, kids and adults alike. I didn't make the cut for the exam first time around, and the second exam is in a week. I asked my senpai, but I didn't get super specific feedback regarding what I need to improve. I don't think I'm super bad at Kendo in general, but I've said that if I don't pass the second exam, I'll quit Kendo altogether. Don't do that. I mean, if I can't be considered good enough to even the basic stuff, why bother doing it? Especially when kids can pass the exam. It's quite demoralizing that after watching so many videos, reading up on Kendo and spending money on Kendo gear, I can't even qualify to wear the borga. I think it's similar to 5th Q in terms of what I need to be able to do. Like, if I'm unteachable, I really feel they should have told me at the outset before I skinned my left foot several times over. I'm asking myself if I'm just not comfortable with being bad at something, or if I'm too much of a perfectionist as I work in a very demanding profession. P.S. One of the things that's giving me a bit of hesitation about quitting is the wonderful Kachi Kendogi I got from KendoStar. Thank you. The other thing, oh, now I can't be mean to you. The other thing is that I'm generally not a quitter, and I really want to stick to Kendo philosophy and improving it a bit by bit each day. If this is how disappointing it is going to be, though, I'd rather cut my losses early. I know this seems minor compared to the things another Kendoka have been through, but I'd really appreciate your thoughts. Thanks so much. Okay. Right. Okay, right. The gloves are coming off for this because I love you and I want you to succeed, okay? So please know that before we get started, okay? Know that before we get started, okay? This is for you. I want you to do well. I want you to benefit from everything that Kendo has to offer. And I really care about you, otherwise I wouldn't even be answering the question. Okay? So, first off, I'm going to answer the question for you that your senpai couldn't answer for you, the super specific feedback. You didn't pass the exam because you can't do Fumikomi. All right? That's it. You can't do Fumikomi. If you can do Fumikomi, you pass the exam. I promise you. All right? Now, with that out of the way, okay, saying if you don't pass it the second time, you'll quit Kendo. Look, let's not do this, all right? And especially this sort of, if I'm unteachable, they should have told me before I skinned my foot, you know, let's not be a victim, all right? Let's not be a victim, right? You skinned your left foot for your own benefit, not for theirs, okay? You skinned it for your benefit, okay? Like we all did. You're not unteachable. Nobody's unteachable. You just haven't had the penny drop yet that needs to. Doesn't drop at the same time for everybody, all right? We all learn Kendo at a different pace and we all improve in a different way. There's people that started well before me that are now, that to be honest, I've had people who are my senpai become members of my dojo and become my students, right? My own sensei is a, I mean, if we're talking about grade, I've passed more grades than he has now. Does that mean, you know what I mean? It doesn't mean anything, right? It doesn't mean anything. Now, it's not about being a perfectionist, right? It's about and you're not going to like me saying this, it's about being a little bit more humble, all right? Kendo is about humility, and this is what we lack in terms of understanding outside of Japan when it comes to our approach to Kendo. And this feeds into a little bit what I talked about before in terms of how to practice with the sensei, right? Because we all want to have grades, and we all want to think that we're important and that we're good and that we mean something and that we're somebody. And we're not. And that's the fact of the matter. We're just like everybody else. So, I really think there's a lot that you can benefit from pursuing Kendo. And I really would discourage you from giving it up just because you failed at the very first hurdle. I have a book here. All right, this is a book. All right, it's in Japanese, but it's called let me take the thing off. It's called Kachitsuzukeru Gijutsu. Okay, which means the method or the technique of continuous victory. And it's written by Hachidan Sensei, Miyazaki Masahiro. Okay, it's a fantastic book. I absolutely love it. And Miyazaki Masahiro Sensei is arguably the most successful Kendoka of all time. 6 times All Japan champion, right? Of course, breezed through the 8th Dan exam. 8th Dan champion, 7th Dan champion when he was 7th Dan. Very, very highly accomplished Kendoka. And if you ask most people who's the most successful Kendoka I've ever, most people would say him. There's a chapter in this book, right? I'm not going to read it, right? But there is a part in this book, and I'm just trying to find it so I don't get it wrong. But he failed a lot. Okay, he failed a lot, and one of the things that he talks about is how he failed his shodan. And he didn't just fail it once, he failed it several times. I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head how many times he failed it, but it was several times. He failed it several times. He failed first dan at the age of like 13 or 14. Right? And it's not that easy to fail shodan in Japan, to be honest. But he did. Okay? Now, if he'd quit at that point, then he would have deprived the Kendo community of the greatest or most successful Kendoka in history. Okay? So it's not about just success. Success comes from failure. All right? So you have to fail things. We all do. Right? And we all think about quitting Kendo. We all feel like we want to quit Kendo sometimes. And being a Kendoka isn't about how many times you can score the ippon or how beautiful your kamae is. It's about how you can overcome yourself, your own wants, desires, and ego. Whether that be, as I said, when you're facing against the sensei, as I said earlier, or whether that's even just practice isn't going how I want, or I've had a hard day at work, I'm tired, I don't really want to go. But overcoming that and saying to yourself no, and going and doing it and carrying on even though it's hard, taking the hard route, not the easy one. I think that's what real Kendo really is about. Okay? So, don't quit. Figure out how to do fumikomi. Watch the video I've done about it, how to improve your fumikomi. Once you're able to do fumikomi, you'll be able to get into the boga and you'll be able to practice. All right, I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. You're not doing fumikomi. That's the only reason, not the only reason, but you know, I'm not going to tell you. All right, don't think of it as the reason you failed is because you didn't do fumikomi. Think of it as if you can do fumikomi, you will pass. Right? You'll pass. Okay? And I know that. I'm sure of it. Okay? Okay. Good. Right. Hi, Andy. Would you mind elaborating on training in high school in Japan? Why would they allow a foreigner adult to train with them? I can't imagine an equivalent in the US. Thanks. All right. All right. So high school Kendo in Japan. Yeah, you can't just walk in. You can't just go in. Right. I was able to do it because I was connected with the right people. Now, yeah. This is it. I mean, it's nothing to do with being a foreigner, to be honest. But most high schools would be open to, you know, a foreign person doing Kendo. Especially if they're at a certain level, and they've got like the okay from the sensei or something like that, because it's a good experience for the kids there to interact with a foreigner, which they don't necessarily often get to. So, you know. But you can't just walk in. Yeah, you need the connection to do it. You can't just walk up to a high school and be like, "Can I practice you?" You know, because yeah, you need to have some sort of connection. Now, all the ones that I've been to, and I've been very lucky to have been able to practice at some of the best high schools in Japan. I've been lucky enough to have personal connections to. So that's that. But in terms of the training. I've had different stages of training there. Obviously, you know, when I was younger and I was very, very seriously competitive, you know, I'd join and I'd do my best to join the full practice, which involves a lot of hard training, a lot of kirikaishi, uchikomi, kakarigeko, oikomi geiko, stuff like that. When I was a little bit older but still competing, it was a little bit harder for me to get access to that because of the time of day that they practice. So I'd still go and practice there, but sometimes I could only get there for the latter half of the practice because I had to work, which meant I'd only go and join the jigeko, which was still very beneficial. But I'd have to find that harder practice elsewhere. Now, at the same time, I'd still, if they had like a gashiku that was at a weekend, I'd go to that and die. Yeah, it was very, very hard. But you know, they always treated me very, very well though, and they were very, very kind and supportive, even if I couldn't keep up with them. So yeah, that's essentially it. In terms of the but yeah, me being a foreigner, being allowed to train with them, it's because I was connected with the right people, to be honest. But I mean, it's not to say that they're like super closed either. They're not like secret societies. You just have to know or be able to, you know, you just have to know the right person who'll be able to say, yeah, you can come and train here. And as long as they know that you're okay, you know, I mean, I was able to go because I had an in with the fact that they knew that I was already sort of semi-competent at Kendo because I was already a member of my national team when I started joining. So once the person relevant knew I was a national team member, oh yeah, you can come and train with us, sort of thing. And they'd be interested to see what a national team player would play like and stuff like that as well. So there was that. But then, you know, for other people as well, once they realize that, you know, you're not like just a thug or something like that or dodgy, then yeah, they're usually pretty open, at least in the experience I've had. I would find a RANT video quite interesting as to why it potentially holds you back when you have to start with 6 years as an adult. I've read something like that in the comments, but I can't figure it out. Sure, the waiting times are definitely something that takes time, but when I look at the content of the exam regulations and hence the thinking error because it was thought too German, different skills, different was and so on are required to pass the exam. Basics, therefore, it somehow makes sense to start with the 6Q for me, but of course I'm aware that I definitely missed the wider point of viewing this case. Okay, so you asked the question last time, all right, and that's why we're talking about this, and that's why you mentioned about being German, because you mentioned in the last one that you were in Germany. Now, as I said, this idea of starting Kendo, starting gradings at 6Q and making everybody work up to them slowly, it's not exclusive to Germany. Like, let me be really clear on that. There's other countries as well that do it, and I don't agree with it in any of them personally. It's my opinion. Now, you're asking, why does it hold you back? Right. So my case, in my personal case, all right, I started Kendo in September of a given year, and it was 2002. I'll tell you, I started Kendo in September 2002. Right, I passed Shodan in October 2003. Okay, so 13 months. Okay. So if I had, that means I was able to demonstrate the skills. I was able to demonstrate the skills required for Shodan in 13 months. Okay. So what would have been a good reason for me to delay that, having to take 6Q to show that I know how to put on my dogi or something, and then do some basic ashisabaki, and then, okay, I know how to do some suburi so I can get 5th Q 3 months later, or whatever it takes. I'm not against the idea of doing like some sort of Q grading, internal Q grading before you do the IQ exam, but and then I was Shodan when I first participated in the European Championships, so it's not like I was like below the level of other Shodan in Europe and stuff, because it just wasn't the case, and it's not what I've seen. So some people need 3 or 5 years to get to Shodan or more. That's fine. I'm not saying that should be a problem, right? I'm not saying that. And I'm not even saying that there shouldn't be a system where they can take each of the separate Q grades. That's fine. What I am saying is that a system where you must take every separate Q grade and each one is spaced certain months apart, that will hold back people who are able to achieve that level sooner. Because it's not the case that when I took my Shodan, or if I had spent 5 years getting to Shodan or 3 years getting to Shodan, then I was actually at international 3rd Dan level. I wouldn't have been. I'd have still been at Shodan level, because the grade that you are at and working towards influences your progress. There's nobody, there's a certain aspect to challenging gradings that affects your Kendo development, because and arguably you could say up to 3rd Dan, that is sort of semi similar, all right? So yeah, you could get somebody, I guess, that's like 3rd Dan level challenging Shodan, right? But there's nobody that's like gonna get Shodan and spend 20 years as Shodan and be doing Kendo at like Rokudan, Nanadan level, right? Because they are not developing in that way, all right? It just doesn't happen. Right? Well, I've never seen it, all right? Now, in Japan, there are a lot of people that stop at Godan, at 5th Dan, all right? A lot of people that stop at 5th Dan. And the 2 reasons for that, one is that 5th Dan is the highest level you can achieve at a prefectural level. So you don't have to travel to do any. And then also, obviously, once it becomes 6th Dan, it starts to cost a lot more money. So unless you're like really serious about Kendo, then you know, a lot of people will tend to stop at 5th Dan. Now, the thing is, and that's fine, but Japan's a very different society for a start in terms of Kendo, in that like you don't really know what grade everybody is because nobody talks about it that much. But what I have seen is I've known several people who have sort of got their 5th Dan or whatever and had it for several years, and sort of, there's not that many though. A lot of people do tend to go for the Rokudan and Nanadan if they're still doing Kendo actively as adults. But there is a transition from doing Kendo as 5th Dan to doing Kendo as 5th Dan working towards Rokudan. There's a transition in the Kendo that happens in the way that you approach your Kendo development, because you have to demonstrate you understand different concepts, and to some people those concepts are new even at that level. So it is, and especially as it's not about winning the shiai. It doesn't matter how strong you are at winning the shiai, right? So a very similar thing occurs, I believe, at the very lower ranks with Q grades, where you have somebody that's, you know, they've been doing Kendo for 2.5 years and they're still like 4th Q or something. It's like, well, and they're doing Kendo at like a Shodan level, yeah, but they're not doing it at like Sandan, Nidan Sandan level. So I just don't see the benefit to it. Like, do you see what I'm saying? If nothing, it just makes people wait longer. So I don't think, again, just clearly, I don't think it's a problem to have that system. But I think there should be a way to bypass it for people who are able to demonstrate a higher technical ability, so that you're not just working. So somebody can aim to get Shodan in sort of 12, 13 months, like I did. Yeah. There should be no reason why people can't do that. So there you go. Last one. Hi Andy, a month ago I joined my local club at 30 years old and I've since discovered your channel. It's been both great resource and information and entertainment. Good, thank you for the hard work. Thank you for your kind comments. Out of pure curiosity, since I've started Kendo quite late in life, in your opinion, what would be realistically the highest achievable grading before my body creaking and cracking too much? Again, thanks. All right, so you're 30, you're not that old for a start, all right? You're not that old at all. Let's say you take to Kendo very well, and you know, you progress in it pretty quickly, and you live in a country where you can get Shodan in a year. It's very realistic. Not really. Well, with hard work and dedication, there's no reason why you can't get 6th Dan in 20 years of Kendo practice. All right, I did it in less than that, so you can do it in less than that. No problem. But let's say it takes 20 years to get to 6th Dan. It doesn't, but it could do, right? Assuming you don't take any breaks and stuff like that. Yeah, so you'll be 50, right? Another 6 years, you can start challenging 7th Dan, and you're 56. It's not that old, right? So, you know, yeah. And then, all right, if you want to start challenging 8th Dan, let's say you pass your 7th Dan at 56, you want to start challenging your 8th Dan, you've got to wait 10 years after 7th Dan, so then you're going to be 66, all right? So you're going to be in the higher age bracket probably for, in fact, I don't even think you are. I mean, people in the 60s pass Hachidan sometimes. So, you know, but realistically, like, passing Hachidan is like, but like 7th Dan is definitely a achievable target. Absolutely. All right. But yeah, you're looking 25 to 30 years work. All right. In which case you'll be like, yeah, about 60. But you could definitely do that. Right. And you know, if you keep practicing Kendo, then that will help you build a strong body and spirit, and you'll be able to keep practicing it all your life. People practice Kendo into old age all the time. So you know, you're definitely not on the sort of, you know, you're not too old sort of thing. So nobody is. Okay, so there we go. That was the questions from today. Fun little rant. It's a bit of a long one again, but thank you for joining me. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, appease the YouTube robots. Have a great weekend of Kendo, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.